Welcome, welcome, welcome. I'm Dr. Paul Dyer. Welcome to Are You Prepared? The conversation I want to have with you. There's a couple of things that's been on my mind today. Specifically, let's give our prayers and comforts to the Queen is dead, the the oldest monarchy alive. She has passed today. If you did not know that she passed today, she passed today. But that's not what I want to talk to you about. I want to talk to you about a couple of things that's been on my mind, and the reason why I think this talk is Are You Prepared? Is because right, we have talked about in other parts of my shows that I do would be mental health. You be the judge, or even other interviews I've had with people about certain things that are going on in our civilization in the United States or even globally. And having friends and close friends around the world, I get lots of great reports and different reports and doing things with the UN and the security. There's things that just is always happening, and sometimes it weighs so heavily on me about the information that I think I just want to share. I don't want to share the particulars, but I want to share, are you prepared? And how are you preparing yourself? When we think of preparedness and we think of it as a meal, and I've gotten into this cooking thing, and I think it's Gordon Ramsay. It's just amazing. But when I get into thinking about preparation for a meal, it's getting the pieces ready to be cooked. And the cooking process is, whatever the oven or the pan or however how you have your different oils and butter. But then there's the service to something. I think we have been prepared and we are cooking metaphorically, and we're about ready to be served up. And this is not in a good way. We have the United States in itself, we have, I think it's roughly $30 trillion in, I think with $30 trillion in debt. That's not a number I can even wrap my head around. And I'm a Star Trek fan, so I'm way out there, to far lands gone beyond, right? To explore new lands. But $30 trillion is something I'm unable to fully grasp. But listening, hearing, reading from several economists, we're heading for a downfall. And in that downfall, economically, when we know that certain communities are already economically depressed, we know that certain communities are already economically depressed. High crime, high transportation, people transient, people moving in and out, no home ownership. There's a lot of things with economically depressed centers. I was talking to a friend of mine today, and he was thinking of how to prepare ourselves for the have and the have not. And how do I get our families prepared to have something? Because the have nots are going to have nothing. We're not talking about not having vacation time. We're not talking about not being able to go on my lake cabin. We're not talking about those have nots. We're talking about people not able to have shelter. We're talking about people not able to afford food. We're talking about people, even to this day, right now, people don't have water. Here in the United States, I've been to so many countries where we used to hand out bottled water as the soldiers are going through things. We're in that place here in the United States. You can blame it on climate. You can blame it on environmental causes. I'm not asking you to blame anything on anything. I'm asking you, are you prepared? What are you prepared for? Are you prepared to be without water? Are you prepared to be without food? Are you prepared to be without shelter? These are things that if you have a family, talk with your family. If you have friends, talk with your friends. How are you building your community to have a community to thrive together? because survival, people are going to be snatching and grabbing. We know what happens during snowstorms, tornadoes, hurricanes, and what the stores go through, and when we have transportation issue. We know that the Americans are printing money and sending $80 million to the Ukraine. We know this. It could be over $800 million. Sorry, $800 million. It's over $800 million. It could be over $800 million. But it's not the money that I want to talk about, or what cabinet or what president did or didn't do. I'm talking about us as human beings. Us, how are we going to prepare for each other, and how are we going to prepare for ourselves? You know, I look at lots of different things, and I'm a geek at doing that. I'm a geek, you know, and I love science, and do you guys know about the doomsday clock? It's actually kept at the United Nations, and it's always ticking and going. And it used to be when it's 2 minutes to midnight, and that was several years ago. And what it really calculates is how close we are to nuclear disaster globally, not just in certain parts of but globally. Well, it's at 100 seconds to midnight. 100 seconds. It changed roughly around 2022 January, because when the Ukraine and the Russia thing popped off, it changed. So there was a big thing about that. And so when you look at the doomsday clock going to 100 seconds, and you're thinking, like, Dr. P, what does that really mean? It means that on a large scale, not because of Russia and Ukraine, just because of how things are moving economically, military-wise, unrest in other countries, and the unrest here in the United States in certain areas. Pick an area. There are unrest here in these United States, and people are going to find themselves backed up against a wall, and they're only going to come out with bullets flying and bloodshed. I'm not trying to scare you, and this is not about that. And maybe you know some of this, maybe you heard some of this, and maybe you just have never thought of it. So when I ask you, are you prepared? I'm asking you, how are you preparing yourself? Do you have like a little box? Do you have a box, like you have all your goodies in and you're ready to go? Do you have your good book, or however book you read, or whatever faith you have? Do you have the things you pray with? Do you have mementos, or do you have your survival gear? Do you have your water filtration system? Do you have your canned foods? Do you have your canned food? Do you have supplies? Do you have, because you don't know where this is going, but you know it's going to go badly if you're not prepared. And then there's an emotional content to it. We're going to have lots of loss of lives. There's going to be lots of loss of lives. Friends, families, close people there's a mourning process to this. There is a process that we have never fully come to grasp with. And anyone who has been alive, the last time these United States had to go through that was the Civil War. And not everyone actually felt all through the Civil War. Maybe all the South, but not all the North. The North had really very little to do with the Civil War. I mean, it got up towards Virginia and Pennsylvania, but you got upper parts that just it never touched. But the devastation that happened to the homes and the food supply and all the, doesn't matter what you agree with about the, I'm not talking about the Civil War as a political thing. I'm talking about just the devastation in this country. We haven't had it. And the only close thing we've ever had is the Civil War. But other countries, other people who have come from other torn countries, pick a country, Beirut, Middle East, to pick anything, Israel. And I'm not talking about the reasons why they're fighting. Stop getting so particular on the reasons why they're fighting. I'm just talking about the devastation and how you're preparing yourself as a family, as a friend, as a community. Are you asking these questions? Because the signs are out there. The signs are ringing the bell, the dinner bell. We're about ready to be served up. We've been getting cooked for a long time, and I don't mean just climate change or the hot summers or the evaporating waters. We're running out. We're running out of supplies. And people are starting to internally feel it, which they are externally expressing it. So if you want to have a conversation, you have some great ideas of how you're preparing yourself and how you're getting ready without panicking. I don't want you to panic. I don't want you to grab your head and say, oh no. And I don't want you to point the fingers at it's because it's their fault and it's if we only did and if we only just knew, right? I don't want that to happen. I want you to embrace love, share, get prepared, learn some skills you didn't think you had to learn. How many people know how to make a fire with just rubbing sticks? We taught that this summer at the camp. How many people know how to can foods? Not everybody knows how to can foods and how to can it and how to pickle it. I do. Not everybody knows how to chop wood. You think it's just an axe and cut. It's a little bit more than that. Or how much wood burns and how fast it burns. There's soft woods and there's hardwoods. What can be preserved? Ask yourself, are you prepared? I'm asking you. If you have any answers, you can always reach out to me. Put it in the inbox every time you see this or like this. And just suggest some things. Because we're running out of time. As the Dooms clock says, we got 100 seconds to midnight. But before that clock literally strikes midnight, let's get prepared. We get prepared as a community, as a people, as human life. Because right now we're tearing apart. We're ripping it apart. And it's causing a lot of pain. Let's stop causing so much pain and let's get prepared in something. I want you to be kind, be compassionate, and love. You guys have a blessed evening, and I hope you enjoyed this conversation. Thank you. Good night.